URC round number 17, folks. Edinburgh hosting Munster, the penultimate round of the regular season. Interesting match, high intensity, some injuries, and some weird refereeing calls. I think both sets of fans will have a few things to say about that. But anyway, we'll go through some key events and some stats. Ultimately, Edinburgh end up with a losing bonus point, which come the end of the season might prove pretty important with the way the log is standing, and Munster's hot run of form coming at the right time, isn't it? It's a win away from home, albeit a narrow one. And then a tense start to the match. I mean, there was line breaks, turnovers won early on. It was not one of these matches that starts scrappy and kind of builds into it. It was all guns blazing basically from the start of the match. Edinburgh got the first points on the board with a penalty, making it 3-0, and then a scrum got them a second one to make it 6-0. And Ben Healy up against his former club, hitting some points from the boot, which he's been doing all season in the URC. And Munster a little bit guilty of some knock-ons, like maybe a bit of the sun in their eyes, but a bit of the handling early left a little bit to be desired from the boys in red. But they had some nice hands. So they finally got it clicking after those knock-ons kind of ceased. But, oh man, what was that, Lang with the tackle? Like, Munster was just starting to get humming. Like, nice wide ball, quick pop passes, and then it looked like Coombs was going to go for all money over in the corner, and Lang absolutely belted him into touch. So, yeah, really cracking start to the game. Didn't take Munster long after being put into touch to get the first try of the game, though. Antoine Frisch gets his first of two. A nice little dink over the top, kind of one-handed regather. The Edinburgh boys maybe will not like the look of that one on the replay, but sometimes with bobbling balls through from kicks, that can happen. So a missed conversion, but 6 points to 5. And then the Edinburgh penalty extends their lead out to 9-5 on 22 minutes. And Edinburgh, some of their fans have told me they're a little bit miffed with the kind of lack of try scoring. Well, they did get their first one, 24 minutes through Bennett, and it was their turn for a little dink through, which was maybe not fielded that well by Munster. So 16-5. And then Munster managed to kind of hit back in a real tit-for-tat match. A huge period of phases. 5 minutes before half-time, they ended up getting a 5-metre scrum. They ended up getting advantage. They had a penalty from the scrum, 5-metre tap, more phases, and then they finally finished it with Frisch. Again, his second of his 2 tries to make it 16 points to 12 at half-time. Possession's been pretty split evenly half-time, 49-51 to Munster, but the territories with Munster, 60%. Clean breaks is 1 apiece. Knock-ons is 7-2 to Munster. That's one area that was kind of particularly frustrating. But man, the Edinburgh boys have had to make a lot more tackles, 118 to 77. That period at the end of the game, end of the first half, I should say, Munster just phase after phase, Edinburgh having to make a lot of tackles, but doing so well, man. 90% tackle percentage. Munster was at 89, so both sides defensively pretty solid. Second half is where we kind of get a little bit more controversy, I feel, after a pretty, as I said, tit-for-tat arm wrestle first half. Second half, I mean, Munster scored from a scrum, which is one of those ones where I look at it and go, this is why scrums are good, World Rugby, because, you know, they're getting rid of scrums from free kicks going forward. But, scrum in Edinburgh's 22. Nice wee scrum move, a little bit of deception. And Crowley goes over basically untouched. That makes it 16 points to 19 with Munster in front for the first time. But then a Ben Healy penalty puts things back even. 19 points all not long later. And then we get our first kind of real moment of controversy because Edinburgh under a bit of pressure. Ben Healy has to kick clear. And Achia Sneeman clobbers him, which is his job. And I feel like the timing was just about right. But then Ben Healy doesn't react too well to being clobbered by the big bit of South African beef. And they kind of just get into a bit of verbals, pushy shovey. But the thing is, Ben Healy's on the ground and Achia Sneeman's on top of him, which is not the best position to be in if you're Ben Healy. He's a smaller man and he's being squished. So I do feel like, despite the fact that Healy's reacted badly, Achia Sneeman needs to get off him. But Bill Matter sees what's going on. He sees his number 10 being bullied, so he comes in and it all kind of escalates from there. And that's how the ref rules it. He says that Bill Matter is the guy at fault. So it's a penalty to Munster, which Munster end up scoring from pretty much directly. So Coombs goes in from close range, 26-19. But I don't reckon that one needed to be a penalty. I reckon that one's a talking to, because it's not really. I mean, Mata's actions are not great, but I mean, you could argue just don't give the referee a decision to make there, let the referee handle it. Yep, that's sensible. But I do feel like the referee, if he's a bit, I don't know, I don't want to say cooler head, but the referee can just tell them to cut it out, I feel like. Because there was multiple guys doing unnecessary things in that one. So I feel like that one's a cut it out. The next one's going to be a penalty. But he gives it to Munster, and Munster end up scoring. So 26-19, the crowd doesn't like it. I don't blame them, but that's the call. Edinburgh had a 5-metre line-out chance not too long later, but Munster's defence held pretty well. Big cheer for Via Nell in what's probably his last home match for Edinburgh. So that was a kind of touching moment for the Edinburgh fans to do that. And then another kind of dodgy one Edinburgh fans won't like, where Velicott tried to milk a penalty like the halfbacks always do when they pass the ball into a retreating player intentionally. The ref was just like, we're not playing for penalties here. So despite the fact that the Munster guy was in an offside position, Velicott gets nothing from it. So Edinburgh will feel a little bit hard done by where they kind of doubled down there. But I'm also not a fan of halfbacks doing that. But then again, the reason referees police that usually and halfbacks go for it is because you get lazy runners who kind of obstruct quick play. So yeah, you could argue that one was harsh as well. Conor Murray gets himself yellow carded as Edinburgh put more pressure on in 63 minutes. He goes off his feet and kind of slaps the ball from Ali Price's hands. No penalty try, but it is a yellow card for a bit of cynical play. And then we get the other end of the kind of scrum scale, like where we had the Crowley move earlier, which was a great bit of scrum play. Then you get bloody reset after reset after reset. It ends up with just a penalty, which Edinburgh end up tapping. Like, it's a lot of yellow card time wasted if you're Edinburgh. Maybe you just tap it in the first place instead of going for the scrum, but I can get what you mean. You want the 8 opposition forwards all together in one place to try and take advantage of the space with the yellow card, but it just ends up costing them a lot of time. Eventually, the try is given to Fenter, but again, like if there was a little bit of a dodgy call, I thought for the other try, I think this one was like usually TMOs need the most crystal clear of evidence, and maybe I just need better glasses, but that's a hell of a call. The referee, the TMO, have got like this one frame where he's like, that's a try, I can see it there. Like, man, you wouldn't want that one to be given in a Rugby World Cup final anyway, but from that frame, the TMO gives it. So maybe you could kind of say 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It kind of works out evenly, but 26 points apiece. Key moment is Munster regaining the lead, though, during the yellow card. Remember, they've also got kind of 2 halfbacks on the field prior to Murray's yellow card because they've had injuries. They've had Nankerville and Haley go off, so they're playing with a 6-2 split with a couple of halfbacks on the field. One of them's been yellow carded. During that yellow card period, when Edinburgh should be the ones putting on the pressure, they concede a penalty at the breakdown, so 29-26. That's the final score. Edinburgh did have a chance because they managed to win a penalty straight from the restart, but then mucked up the line out, and that was the yellow card over. So that's maybe the kind of key moment for them where they needed to kind of exert some pressure but didn't get it done. Ultimately, that's the kind of moment I'd be looking back if I was an Edinburgh fan where we lost it. You know what I mean? Like you've got your line out, attacking territory, one man up, and you muck it up. So that's the one that was in your control. You know, the referee stuff's beyond your control. Edinburgh end up needing to go length of the field because Munster put on a bunch of pressure, trying to deny them maybe even the losing bonus point, but Edinburgh's defence held on their own goal line. They needed to go length of the field. They couldn't even escape their own goal area. So they end up with the losing bonus point, which is better than nothing. But they would like to win. Munster end up with a bonus point win, which they'll be pretty happy with because Edinburgh is not the easiest place to travel to. Possession finishes 46-54 to Munster. Territory 49-51 to Munster. Clean breaks 2-3 to Munster. But also turnovers conceded 18-12 to Munster. Goodness me, a bit too much knock-ons. But again, especially in the first half. Edinburgh end up making 188 tackles. Munster 148. Both sides tackling in the kind of mid to high 80s in their percentage, which is pretty solid. A couple of the Munster guys from the bench, Roy Scannell and Achia Snyman, both clock up a few run meters, 73 and 45 respectively, which is not bad. Gilchrist makes 27 tackles, which is pretty massive. He had, 18 at halftime, which is a big old shift. Lochman also makes 18 throughout the game. He was Munster's top man in that regard. But yeah, Edinburgh got one game to go. They'll be away to Benetton, and Munster are home to Ulster. So yeah, going to be an interesting final round. We'll wait and see how the remaining games play out in this kind of penultimate round of the URC. But in terms of a good start to my Saturday, I was pretty well entertained. You guys let us know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts on those referee calls as well. I don't usually focus on those, but I thought they were interesting. Anyway, you guys take care. I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.